Coaches, are you ready to revolutionize your game preparation? For the past 5 seasons, coaches across the nation have been using the ultimate scout team game changer, the Coachpad. Imagine this: no more scrambling on weekends to prep scout cards, no more fumbling with paper and binders. Whether you're drawing your cards digitally with a computer program or sketching them by hand, the Coachpad is your all in one solution. Picture yourself on the practice field, effortlessly managing your scout team or standing on the sidelines during game day, syncing adjustments from the press box to your coaches on the sideline and back. With the coach pad, you can clearly see your scout cards even in the brightest sunlight. No more squinting or dealing with the wind blowing clear vinyl sleeves everywhere. This offseason, take your coaching to the next level. Get your coach pad today at thecoachpad.com and gear up for a winning season ahead.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. We have our returning guest here today. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, so people can find this and can find other videos on the channel, or if you're listening on the podcast, so they can find all that jazz as well. Today we have the offense coordinator at Andrews High School in the great state of Texas, Coach Brink. Coach Brink, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Again, battling whatever cold slash cough that I've developed from coming back from North Carolina. But we'll make it work. So, like I said, I mean, heck, we talked a couple months ago. We've texted and DM'd back and forth since then. But like, I mean, so last time you spoke on mostly drills and kind of the general install, and like I said, I've gotten some feedback. You've gotten some feedback over the past couple of days and all that jazz. I think one of the things, and I think I've asked it a little bit in our first time, but just to kind of go down a little bit because I have people who have reached out to either me or you that are first time installer, transitioning the offense, all that jazz. Like, what were the biggest things you've learned year one to year two that caused you to change things, or so forth from there? Like, what has been the biggest learning points that have you gone through? Like, hey, we need to make sure we do this, or we forgot to do this, or this didn't work, so let's adjust it here.
I think so. First off, like when we first transitioned, I mean, we were already here at Andrews. We went from the spread. I was already on staff. I was on the defensive side. And after that first year here, our head coach was just like, it's time to change. He'd ran the slot T before. He'd worked for Bruce Bush before. And he's just like, this is just who I am. Like, we're gonna change. And so I moved over to the offense. And so the first thing we did was we just that spring, that winter in February and January, we just brought in the quarterbacks and said, because nobody here had taken a snap under center. And, that's something you take for granted. I played center some in high school. It wasn't an issue. It was a chore to get a snap. And so that was the biggest thing. Like, to me, if you're going to transition, if you're coming in and you're starting somewhere that's been a spread team shotgun snap, like you've got to get the snaps. You got to get under center and just start getting snaps. And sometimes there was just like banging our head against the wall because we could not figure it out. But we got there. And then, just looking back, a couple things is I wish we would have focused more on our tempo, breaking the huddle and sprinting to the line and just getting the ball snapped even faster. Now we had good tempo. Like, we got up there, we snapped the ball. Like, people would talk to us like, man, casual observers, they're like, y'all are snapping it fast, but it's not near as fast as we are now. And I kind of wish now we would have focused on that more of just getting out of the huddle, just getting up there, getting set, run, get out and get set, get out and get set, get out and get set. And so that's where we're at now. That's what we preach now is like, you better get up there, you better get down, and you better get set. We're not waiting on you. The quarterback's not waiting on anybody. I wish we probably would have focused on that more than other things. And then just staying in right set for a while. I think we tried to get a little ahead of ourselves and going right set, left set, right set, left set, and flipping that line. and the kids may not have been ready for that.
Yeah.
And so, I tell people now, like, just stay in right set for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Just speed it up. Just get to where you're breaking the huddle and just getting up there and getting it out and getting set, because it does take some repetitions to get in your stance. Because we still have now kids, like, they want to mess with their pants when they're getting down or move this. Like, no, you don't have time. Like, get down, get your hands down, get set. And we tell our quarterback, don't wait on anybody. If somebody's still moving, you get down, you get the ball snapped. We'll get after them. If you don't want to get your butt chewed out, you better get up there and get the ball snapped. We're not waiting on anybody. And so, to me, I think that's the biggest thing that sets apart this offense from anything else, is just the tempo and just try and get out of the huddle and getting down and getting set. And then, just keep it pretty simple for a while. There's nothing wrong with just staying in a set and running some plays for a while. You don't have to get outside the box a whole lot. You can just stay there and get comfortable and learn the rules and hone your craft and really double down on those fundamentals, the stance, the starts, the get offs, those things. And I think we did a good job of that. Us coaches here, we were all pretty big on fundamentals and stuff, and we did a good job. But I think obviously there's room for always just, doubling down and being even more fundamentally sound. Um, I wish, going back and looking, we would have done that a little bit more, and kept it a little bit more basic at the beginning. And we we installed a different way than we do now. Um, I wish we would have installed it this way from the beginning, starting with our Buck series out of the A set. We started with the 200 series, and there's really nothing wrong with that. That's a power series. That's also a good starting place, but I wish we would have started with that. Going forward, if someone asked me or whatever the case may be, I'd always say start with 8-hole reverse, 433, 449, the quick traps and the buck sweeps out of A set.
I want to follow up on something you said, the tempo part, like especially for I think it's different if you've been in it for a while, but for teams transitioning to the slot T, at what point do you add the speed? Because obviously you need to know your roles, blah blah, and alignment, and all that. At what point is it practice one? You start with the tempo. Is it practice three of your install? At what point do you say, okay, now we're going fast? Is it day one, or is it that first year? Because obviously year two, year three, you've practiced it in spring ball. You've got your summertime, like you're good there. But like year one, bare bones, when did you guys, or when do you recommend go on the tempo in the sugar huddle?
So, like I said, year one, it's not like we let them walk out of the huddle from day one. We never but like there's a big difference between the tempo now and the tempo we had back then. And I think for me personally, if I was doing it over again, or if I went to a different school to install it from day one, we're going to run out of the huddle from day one, get out and get set. Because we can correct all the other stuff, the rules, the assignments, things like that. But to me, talking with the guys at Liberty Hill and just really thinking about it the past few years, I think that's the game changer, is just running up there, getting down, getting set, get the ball snapped. And it's really no different than, if you talk to true, I think like air raid people who are trying to go tempo, no huddle, like that's what the head coach before here, and he was an air raid guy. I mean, he was no huddle fast. He was the guru when it comes to no air raid. Great guy, great football coach, but that they just stayed in doubles and they were just trying to snap the ball as quickly as possible. And I think that same mentality is what, should be happening here. We want to go as fast as possible. And so I think there's some overlap, philosophy wise between those no huddle tempo, air raid teams that are just going to stay in doubles and just as soon as that ball's set, they're snapping it and running it. That's kind of how we are. As soon as we break that huddle, we're going to sprint to that line and we're going to get it set and we're going to snap the ball. And so I think, I would recommend anyone from day one just demand that tempo, run up there, get out and get set. Um, because looking back, like I wish we would have been faster in year one and year two. And excuse me, I think we're now getting to where we are at that speed. And two, it comes with just being familiar with the offenses and comfortable as coaches too. This is year three for us. This is my third year here running it. We're having some continuity with the staff, and so we're all getting really comfortable in our roles. And so we can preach that and still, you know, everything run in our mind as well, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and that's where I was kind of wondering because I've had that conversation with a couple people lately as they've asked questions about when you've been on or when other people have been on, and from there, a couple of the other questions is and this is separate kind of from what we're doing because and I swear I've either asked Bruce Bush or Kilby this and I can't remember the answer, so I was like, me and you were talking about Jet the other day, anyways. Like, remind me why the wing away the jet wing is pretty much in a track stance because I think a lot of people freak out over that. And I even showed some video to my staff and then they were just completely confused. And I'm like, and I couldn't remember the answer. So I figured I'd at least ask you the jet alignment.
Well, I guess I
If
don't know if I've ever heard Coach Kilby talk about why, but just we do it because Liberty Hill does it that way. If they changed it, we would probably change as well. But really, I would say, just because you can get out of that, you can get going faster. And really, I mean, we teach our guy, like, it's a full sprint. Like, this is another thing about the timing we talked about, we're getting to where on the jet sweep, like we tell that jet back, like, you beat the handoff. We want that quarterback to struggle to get out there because we want that ball out on the perimeter fast. And so my thought would just be because he can sprint faster out of that stance than anything else.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to follow up on you, and we really didn't mention it last time, but every time I've talked to Kilby, you, even, I mean, any slot T guy or people who've watched slot T practices, even though you are arguably probably one of the most physical offenses because of what you do, your practices are not a bunch of we're going to the ground, we're beating the crap of each other. I think about every drill I've ever seen, whether it be you or somebody else, it's shields, it's we're standing there, we're light movement. Do you want to kind of explain why or theory? I know a lot of schools that run the slot tier are smaller in nature, so numbers are probably part of it, but like, what is the theory or why is that? And how does that prepare you for the season?
So we couple different things to take on it. Uh, you know, um, so same thing, like I coached defense for the first 7 years of my career. And even on defense, like it's not like we did a whole lot of just straight up hitting and just tackling people. I mean, it was always thud or whatever it's called now. And so really it's not like a huge difference. And so yeah, we use shields. And we do go live on Wednesdays for our practice. Um, we go against our JV and they're live. They don't use shield. It's full go. I mean, they won't take us to the ground or anything. We'll have an early list of things just like every other practice. But Monday and Tuesday, it's we use shields for practice and for looks and things like that. And mainly just because we don't want to get beat up. We don't want to beat up our scout team players. We don't want to beat up get beat up ourselves. And so it's a good way for us to stay fresh. And and really, and this is how, because we've had debates in the office about this, like, you know, are we ready to play on Friday? Blocking shields versus blocking live bodies. And my thought is Monday and Tuesday, we're using shields, and it's more so mental days for us. It's no different than, a defensive drill where you're running, on defense, A lot of times you go run fits. All you're doing is working your fit, where that ball's going to hit, where you want that fit. And so for us, when we were doing trap sweep and team drills on Monday and Tuesday, to me, it's our fit. What are our rules? Where are we going? Our steps, things like that. That's what we're concerned about is our first step, things like that. That's what we want to coach. Pad level, assignment, what's our rule? And so to me, it's not a big deal. Yeah, we're a physical team, but um, we're not just going to beat each other up throughout the season. And so we use those shields, and we need to make sure we know our assignment, our rule. We want to coach first step, second step, hand placement, eye placement, all that stuff. And so the shields give us a good picture of all that stuff. And I've seen, practice drills and stuff from Harding and other flex bone teams. Like I've went and watched Midland High. They run the flex bone. They're doing the same thing. So it's not, all these power run teams, like they're doing the same thing. And it's just so that we don't get beat up.
Okay. That's kind of continuing down. Do you have, and because this was a funny question, because I always I think asked last time I asked you for your favorite play, and I love doing that with various offenses, but do you have a favorite unconventional formation or play? Like again, you guys, I know again, the more I talk to each one of you, you seem to be eliminating more formations, and so you can just go faster and faster and faster. But I mean, me and you've texted about the jet formation, and I love that thing more than anything. But do you have a favorite unconventional formation, or do you prefer just to stay in a right, a left, or play wise, or whatever it is?
We've toyed around with the idea. I think year one we had more formations than year two, and we kind of talked about this year adding some different things and scheming things up a little bit, and you know I don't know, because there's pros and cons to everything, and this going down the rabbit hole, I'll answer your question, but like we only have a finite amount of time to practice things, and so once you start adding formations, you got to be able to rep those formations in practice, even though you run the same. Everyone talks about formations are really cheap, plays are really expensive, but at the same time, like if you have a formation, you got to be able to run that play in practice so you can run in the game. Because I heard one coach talk about they had 10 or 12 plays, but they had all these formations. And, they run the same play out of different formations. They get in the game, they're screwing the plays up out of these different formations. And he's like, what's the matter, guys? And they're like, coach, it just looks different. It just looks different. And so that really resonated with me. Like, yeah, we can run a lot of the same plays out of different formations, but are we going to be able to get those reps in practice, and still be true to ourselves? And so, we'll see. And so, I mean, I look all the time and see things like, man, it'd be cool to line up in this formation because we could do this, this, and this. But it just goes back to like, when will we have time to practice it? Because I keep a spreadsheet every week, and it's broken down by formations and all the plays that we can run out of those formations. And I check it off every day on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, all right, we ran this play out of this formation. And I start looking, and it's like, we haven't ran this play out of this formation. So probably don't need to call it in the game. So no, not necessarily have a favorite formation. I do like I do like our double wing stuff formation. We call M. The jet's pretty cool, but um, nothing that I would say is just like my favorite. I still like the quick traps the best. I really like running the trap, and when it hits, and it's really nice.
That's funny. But yeah, no, you're right. Now, I do want to follow up with drills because I think, again, I go back to always, I don't care how well you know an offense. If you can't teach it, it doesn't matter. And then you need to find ways to replicate what you're going to see in a game. Like drills just to run drills are useless, but drills that can replicate what you're going to be. And me and you presented on quite a few of them last time. Like, I mean, you showed us um, both the sweep drill and the sweep pod. trap drill, and then I think half line on something in the 400 series.
Yeah.
But like, so like when you're looking at drills, like how are you? I mean, first, obvious, I'm gonna assume that most of them are probably stole from combination of Liberty Hill and a lot of the triple option stuff you look through. But how does that planning process throughout the summer, and how much does that transition? And are there any drills that you're like, we have to run these no matter what in practice?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different things. Like, I'm an O-line coach by heart, and so I really love individual time. I love a lot of drills, things like that. And so the more drills I could find, I love it. I eat up those drills all the time. But we go back to, and I try to always, be an O-line guy, like have a lot of indie time, but we still don't have as much as I would like because we got to get other stuff done. Like, every day we offensive line, they start off in the cage. And kind of going back to our first question, install deal, my suggestion would be if you're taking over a program or you're first starting, you have to get a cage. Um, I would say that's probably the number one deal. Like, you have to get a cage. Like, if you don't have one, it's going to be tough sledding, I think, in my opinion. We're fortunate we got a cage a couple years ago, and then last year we're like, we need a bigger cage, and so we got this extender for it, and so now we can run six boards underneath our cage, and I mean we are just turning kids over, bam, bam, bam. I mean we're running. We probably have, if we had the freshmen out there, freshmen through varsity, um, and we go. When I talk about O line, I'm talking about our swing man to our true lineman to our tight end. That they're linemen. They're over there. We got six boards under our cage. We probably have close to 30 kids, 40 kids. And I mean, we are just rolling through it fast, fast, fast. I mean, there's almost no standing around. As soon as they get back, they're going again almost. And so if you don't got a cage, like do whatever you have to get you a cage. But anywho, every day we start off the linemen, start off with boards and cage. They're underneath there. They're running their, we got right foot lead, left foot lead, glide right, glide left. We got scoops. We got our pulls. We're working all of our major footwork underneath our cage, and we got rugged square dummies on the other end of those boards. And we're running underneath those cage, and we're firing off and we're shooting off into those rugged squares, and we say what we call body surf. We want to body surf on top of those rugged squares, and they better get up and get this thing going again because we're blowing the whistle and that next guy's going. And so that's the first drill we do every day. And then after that, we do shot follow under the cage too. We'll get the scoops, and we'll do like 6-point explosion, and then 4-point explosion, and then 4-point explosion follow, which we just drive into the whistle when we lay out. And so we do that every day. And then we do uh every once in a while we'll do, like last year we weren't very good at down blocks, so then we would go and work on down blocks. And then we do this drill we call zigzags, and we get the rugged square, we put it on the goal line, and one kid will hold it, and the other kid that's going will what we call getting our fit, and he'll fit up that rugged square, have a flat back, and he'll be ready to drive. And as soon as that whistle blows, that guy holding the rugged square, he's back, he's trying to pull that thing and just zigzag all over the place. So you got to stay on it and run our feet, and that's really a um, drill that's also good for like intensity. And we do it as long as, if they're loafing, we'll just keep doing it. And we tell them we'll do this drill for as long as it takes for you to go full speed. It's a max effort type deal. We'll do that one. Um, And then, we have a couple other ones. If we have time, we'll work our scoop steps some more. But then usually at that point, we'll send the swingman and tight ends to go work some pass plays, and we'll take everyone else and we'll go back underneath the cage and we'll work our pulls, our pull kick seal type stuff. And so we'll get back under the cage and we'll work our fits when we pull our buck sweep, and we'll get two linebackers standing on the back side of that cage. And I'll stand on one side and I'll tell the front side, hey, I want you to fit right here. The next guy flow over the top, or the play side linebacker, he scrapes hard outside. The backside linebacker fills. So we work some combination drills like that, just working on our buck sweep fit, because the biggest thing that I learned from year 1 to year 2 was just really, really how labor intensive buck sweep is. Um, it's like, oh yeah, we'll work our pull steps, our kick, things like that. But, just fitting on linebackers, especially a seal line, when you're sealing, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of coaching. And so we work that a lot, just, fitting on linebackers on our buck sweep. And then at that point, usually it's time to come together and we'll do like half line, or we'll go to our pods, like I talked about in the previous one, or, whatever else we may need to work on. We may do an install period, things like that. Now the backs, they don't get a whole lot of drills. It is maybe for the first 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes, they'll do some bag drills. And then after that, we're like 4 periods of just straight backfield mechanics.
Yep.
And they are dog tired after that, because we might have three and a half groups going, and we're just running through all of our plays, bam, 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 bam. As soon as they get back, the next group's going. Like this spring, we had three full backfield sets going, and I counted. We worked for like 20 minutes, and I kid you not, with all three of those groups going, I think we had like 15 plays we were going through. And so, I mean, each group is going to go through the play once. So that's, you know, 15, and I counted it up. I just did the math in my head. We did like 160 reps in like 20 minutes of both right and left set of just our backfield mechanics. So just kind of an idea of like how much like we're actually getting rep wise, over there in a really short amount of time. I think that's probably the biggest deal too, is like people like, how many reps are you getting? And I'm like, we get a lot of reps. Just in general, because we're just getting back up, just running the ball. And so like that day, we had like 160, 170 reps just in 20 minutes. And those kids are just dog tired. And that's all right, team, let's go. And so we don't do a whole lot of just drills like, I saw a drill today on Twitter, like, for running back jump cuts and things like that. It's a cool drill. I really liked it, but just we're not going to do that. Like, we don't do quarterback footwork drills, where they're on the bags. I see a lot of those, and those are all great, but we just not what we do. So much of it's predicated on timing and repetitions. And so that's kind of what the backs do. And then once we get done with that, it's time for the pods or things like that. Or, we do a lot of team, you know, trap drill, sweep drill, and then actual team. And so, I mean, that's the majority of our practice. We do hit the sled. We'll hit that for 2 periods usually, at the beginning, both Monday and Tuesday, and then, we'll taper off towards the end.
Okay. And then my last question for you, and we've kind of hit on it, but I want to kind of get a little more specific with it, is like if you had to do this, actually let me rephrase this. If you like had to, like you kind of mentioned already, if you started over, say somebody you switch schools, or you lost all your kids and got a brand new group of 50 kids and you're still at the same school, but none of them are the same because of whatever. What advice do you have for a coaching staff, not just the head coach, that is transitioning or in a group of players transitioning to the offense for the first time? Like, what is the like key things that you kind of tell them? Somebody, so like whether it be somebody doing it like next season or whatever, like what is the biggest advice that you have for them besides come talk to you or Kilby or anybody else? Like, what is the like, hey, you got to do this, or this is the biggest thing I can leave you with?
I think I think the biggest thing is really, it's, and I've thought about this too, I'm pretty fortunate that I work for a guy that's coached in the slot T before and knows it. And we were fortunate enough to where had enough background knowledge that we could get off the ground by ourselves. Um, but then we were really fortunate where we could visit with other people like Liberty Hill and things like that. But anywho, I would say that the biggest thing is just, before you go out on day one is just, be really confident in yourself. Like, um, if you only know like 2 or 3 plays and all the rules and assignments that have block it, like just stick with those 3 plays. Like, don't get out there and just, get ahead of yourselves. Like, we're gonna go these 5 plays, and it's like, wow, we can't even get one off the ground. And really, I think this is a series based offense. And so, you put that first series in, which is about 3 to 4 plays. And what's great about it is they're all built off each other and a lot of them overlap, and don't move on until you're really comfortable with those first few plays. You can get a lot of mileage out of few plays and just mow people down. Just don't get ahead of yourselves. You know, there is a lot. It's pretty daunting, and I tell people like, don't get overwhelmed, because there's so, like I'm still learning. Like, we went down to Liberty Hill again in May, and just like, just completely just overtaken again. Like, wow, we got to do this, and this. Like, we haven't done a good job with that. Just all the little fine details that go into this offense. Um, and so it is, and it's hard to find resources like, there's just not a plethora of stuff out there. You could pick up any other offense. Like, it'd be way easier to learn the flex bone. There's tons of stuff out there, drills, playbooks, tons of clinics, but they're just, it's hard to find stuff like this, and kind of have to kind of piecemeal it together for the most part. But, just, you know, don't get frustrated. Don't, there's times where you're going to like, just, what are we doing? Like, is this going to work? And just stay the course, if this is what you truly believe, just stick with it. You know, don't panic. Um, just stay with it and just keep chugging along. And, there'll be times where it's just clicking, you're rolling, you think, and then it's like, man, we're not, just keep rolling with it. Because it is daunting, but it'll come around. And like I told the coach the other day, like, when it comes to the kids, like, I'm a true believer in, if you get out there and if you're really passionate about it and you're, be really confident, they'll follow you. It's funny. I've been at a different school where they were wing T, and then we got there and we went to the air spread, and now it's we were spread here and gone to the slot T, and so like, you know, kids will adapt. You know, I don't know. Like, well, what are the kids don't buy into it or whatever? Like, I don't really know how to answer that, because our kids really bought in from day one when we rolled out there, because we're like, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna try something different and see if that helps us out and get us to where we want to be. And the kids are like, all right, sweet, like let's do it. And then we just keep chugging along as we go. And um, just kind of who we are right now. This is what we're gonna do. Um, and so, I guess my biggest advice is just don't get frustrated. You probably feel like you're banging your head against the wall sometimes with just little things, but it'll come, and just take little baby steps. You don't have to put the whole offense in one day. Um, just go a little bit at a time, and it'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
And also too, I think it's the size of the school. We're a little bit different because we're a little bit bigger school, and we can two platoon. We do two platoon. And so all practice long, we have all the offense. We don't have to split. Another school I was at, we weren't fortunate enough to platoon, so we had to go half offense, half defense. And so if you can't two platoon, like, you really got to whittle it down quite a bit,
Yeah.
and just stick with some core things. And you can't do everything.
Perfect. All right, coaches. One, give Coach a follow on the Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. Check out his clinics on Wings and Things. I know they're all there. You can check out my last podcast with him as well. So if you see some of those drills and some of that stuff in a lot more detail, Coach does a really good job of breaking stuff down in all everything that he's been involved in and releasing it, because I can't talk all of a sudden. So, but do all that. Check out our sponsor, Coachpad, all that jazz. Otherwise, that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.